On today's Giraffe Talk, we're going to be speaking on the war in Iran. We're going to be talking about sports. We're going to cover the Epstein Files. And we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the Heritage Foundation.
What topics are in the news?
Breaking news: suspect is still alive.
We will explain how it affects you and expert sources in
The story is still developing. Reports still remain unconfirmed.
They're calling it Kino.
Kid Rock and RFK have filmed a homoerotic exercise video, which also kind of brings me to the topic of the Super Bowl. And normally people get heated over the teams, but this year it was overshadowed by the halftime show. A lot of people were offended that American singer Bad Bunny would be performing. So because of this, we're going to have an alternative halftime show with famous butt rock musician Kid Rock. And I watched the Kid Rock show, I'm not going to lie. Everybody told me I need to check it out. And it was bullshit. Bad Bunny show, I kind of liked it. It did actually have a sense of an American pride, the working class American citizen, and also it had big booty Latinas. Speaking of Latin America, El Mencho, famous cartel leader, has been slain by Mexican special forces. They may have been aided by Cash Patel, but Cash Patel couldn't be reached for a comment because he was busy partying. The U.S. male hockey team, so the United States male and female hockey team, have brought home the gold medal. Donald Trump treated the male hockey team to some McDonald's, his favorite fast food establishment. He said he'll have dinner with the women's hockey team, because if he didn't, he might get impeached. They declined the offer and instead partied with Flavor Flav. And this kind of brings me to my next story, the Burger Wars. McDonald's CEO tried to flex and eat a little burger, saying that he loves his product, and it seemed like he was fucking disgusted by it. In response, the Burger King CEO chowed down on a burger in the back of his kitchen. A&W joined the fray, along with Wendy's. Obama may have accidentally revealed that aliens are real. Trump said he's going to release the UFO files. Is he trying to hide from the Epstein Files? You already know it, and Thomas Macy agrees. Thomas Macy's still trying to release the Epstein list. On the topic of Prince Andrew facing charges regarding the Epstein Files, Donald Trump said, "Hey, I've been totally exonerated." Now let's look a little bit more into the Epstein Files. Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton were compelled to testify in front of Congress. They said they didn't see anything suspicious with Trump and Epstein, and they didn't really fuck around with Epstein like that in the first place. Now most people say they were lying about their ties to Epstein, but for the one time in their life, they were telling the truth regarding Trump not being involved with Epstein. Which, is obviously some weird cognitive dissonance. It's obvious bullshit. They're playing defense for each other. But Trump has other issues to focus on. He said he's going to handle the affordability crisis started by Biden last year when Trump was already president. MAGA billionaires are buying CNN. They're going to have more patriotic programming, more focus on MAGA Republicans and the issues that they're really serious about. Trump has suggested that he may have to use the emergency voting powers to nationalize the midterm voting. The Supreme Courts have struck down Trump's tariffs, saying that they're illegal, and Trump has replied, making an overall global tariff of 15%, said that the Supreme Courts are trying to ruin America by lowering the prices of products. Pete Hegseth has demanded unrestricted access to Anthropic's AI technologies. Anthropic told him to suck a fat one, and they're probably going to get blacklisted from government contracts. However, ChatGPT is taking up the mantle. They said they're going to allow them to do whatever the hell they want with their AI. Now, why is this scary? In most war simulations, about 95% of the time, AI has decided to use a nuclear option. And without any boundaries of military AI, it sounds like it's going to be disastrous. So let's focus a little bit on foreign affairs, in particular warfare. Russia has bombed a pipeline in Hungary, and Hungary has responded by going against Ukraine. They're going to help Russia take them down. I guess if Ukraine just surrendered, then Russia might not damage Hungary's infrastructure, so now they're blaming Ukraine? Well, of course, Ed Rogan said that if Russia ever invades Hungary, he'd immediately surrender and take it up the fucking ass. So, no surprise, huh? And after Cash Patel fired his entire team of Iranian experts, the United States has officially declared war on Iran. Now, Israel said if the United States didn't back them up and stop acting like a bunch of anti-Semites, that they may use a nuclear option, which is scary because they never admitted before that they had nuclear capabilities. Like, we all know that they fucking do. And the U.S.-Israel attack started off with a bang by blowing up a schoolhouse. killing over 100 schoolgirls. Now, they say that it was an Iranian missile that went astray, and the Iranian government has already admitted to this. There's no fucking proof of this, and by all accounts, the United States just had some bad intel and killed a bunch of kids. We did already get the Supreme Leader, Ayatollah, and we killed him on sight. Trump said they needed an unconditional surrender from Iran, and all the 6 U.S. service members have already died. Pete Hegseth said there's nothing to worry about unless you're Iranian and you think you're going to survive this war. In response to all of this, U.S. Marine Brian McGinnis went to protest at a conference with Senator Sheed. They responded by dragging the Marine out, and the senator broke his fucking arm. Spain has objected to the attacks in Iran and has stated that they're no longer going to let United States aircraft take off. In response, President Trump said that he's going to do whatever the fuck he wants. Also, there are reports that Russia is providing Iran with intel about where to strike at United States targets. Pete Hegseth said this is okay, because we all know that Trump has a special relationship with Putin. But I was thinking about our foreign relations and how we're handling our allies, attacking our enemies, and it made me start thinking, what connection does Trump's administration have with the Heritage Foundation? Ah yes, the main topic of today's Giraffe Talk, the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025. What are they? Who's funding them? What are their policies? What is its history? And what level of political clout and political pull does this organization have? And then we're going to look into Project 2025. What is Project 2025? And what is its connection with the Trump administration? This is Giraffe TV. The Heritage Foundation is a far-right think tank founded in 1973 during the Nixon administration, and it is based in Washington, D.C. It will play a lead role during the Reagan administration, and is historically ranked as one of the most influential public policy organizations. And they will publish Project 2025, which was a wish list for the Trump administration, policies they'd like to see be passed. And some people argue that it's now a blueprint for the Trump administration, that their far-right policies have influenced media, the government policies, and political discourse. You're watching a Giraffe production. So now let's look at some of their policies. One of their plans is to take over the court system, and although they originally had a stance of welcoming legal immigrants, they want no immigration at all, whether it's legal or illegal or even tourists. Their stance is more or less, get the hell out of the United States. The Heritage Foundation wants to cut food stamps and any financial assistance to the poor community. They were behind a plan to shut down the government to stop Obamacare from being passed, staunchly against Black Lives Matter, and have described it as a nationwide Marxist insurgency that threatens to destroy the very way of life for the American people. They insist that climate change is not real, and this is based on research done by ExxonMobil. They are against critical race theory and have supported claims of voter fraud, saying that the Democrats have never won a fair election. And this is despite Democrats passing laws to prevent voter fraud. They're anti-transgender, saying it causes teenagers to commit suicide. But overall, they're anti-LGBT, stating that it has destroyed family structure in America. And although they were at one point anti-Russia, they're now pro-Russia and anti-Ukraine. They've also received allegations that they're pro-Nick Fuentes and workers, but anti-Semitic. You're watching Giraffe TV. Now try to look into the funding of Heritage Foundation, where they're a tax-exempt charity that is funded by individuals and corporations. As such, they're not required to disclose the donors. But here's what I found out. They received $250,000 from Joseph Coors, using the Adolph Coors Foundation. And yes, this is the same Coors family that runs Coors Beers. They also received funding from the Chase Manhattan Bank, Dow Chemicals, General Motors, Mobil, Pfizer, and the Korean Central Intelligence Agency. And the Skate Family Charitable Trust has given them tens of millions of dollars. In 2023, the revenue was $101 million, but they ended up expending $103 million. And their average salary is about $96,000, but 15 of them have made over $300,000. You're watching Giraffe TV. So let's look at their history and see how much pull they really have in the United States government. It was founded by Paul Weyrich, Edward Foner, and Joseph Coors, and it was inspired by the Powell Memorandum and had aspirations of being a conservative version of the Brookings Institution, and their goal was to promote anti-communism and conservative Christian family values. During the Reagan administration, they published the Mandate for Leadership, gave about 2,000 proposals, and the main one was to reduce the federal government. And Reagan would fulfill about 60% of these proposals within his first year, and claimed it was one of the best publications he has ever read, and he would command his entire staff to read the Mandate for Leadership. It would inspire Reagan's doctrine of foreign policy and his anti-communist leadership. It would inspire him to create the Strategic Defense Initiative, which is a ballistic missile defense system. George H.W. Bush would adopt some of the domestic and foreign policies as well, and they inspired him to commence with Operation Desert Storm. During the Clinton administration, they would grow in power, and they would kill off the Clinton healthcare plan. Around this time, Newt Gingrich became the Speaker of the House. He would utilize the Contract of America for his policy, and Bill Clinton himself would incorporate some of their ideas in his Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Act. So even when it comes to the Democrat Party, they had plenty of political influence. During the George W. Bush administration, they would support his war in Afghanistan, his war in Iraq, and the treatment of prisoners in Guantanamo Bay. They'd also support the United States doing business with Malaysia, has received much criticism for their violation of human rights. Around this point in time, you can already see some of the culture behind the Heritage Foundation start to change. And of course, during the Obama administration, they opposed the ACA, and Jim DeMint would replace Foner, and he gave the party more of a bipartisan political edge. And a senior employee, Jason Richwine, would publish a report stating that black people and Hispanic people had a lower IQ than white Americans, and that it might be best to kind of rule over them. Now, he received a lot of hate from both the Democrat Party and the Republican Party, and was denounced. In 2015, they suffered a massive cyber attack that leaked plenty of their information. Now, there's not a lot of information to go on about this cyber attack. I do kind of wonder this is what caused them to change their policies in the preceding years. Now, during the 2016 Trump campaign, they would publish pieces that called Trump a clown. They would say he's full of contradictions and that he's not a real conservative. And the MAGA movement wasn't comprised of conservative Republican. It was really an alienated class of Marxists. But once Trump won, they changed their mind and even helped him pick out his staff. First, they only picked about 66 employees, then several hundred. And Trump would follow about 64% of the 334 proposed policy. And the Board of Trustees would fire DeMint. During the Biden administration, they would push fraud claims. Some of Trump's administration would join the Heritage Foundation, such as Mike Pence, who later left in 2 years. Suddenly they changed their mind. They didn't want to support Ukraine, and they wanted to support Russia. Thomas Sowell would resign over this change in policy. It would also show support for the January 6th insurrectionists, and started to write Project 2025 to institutionalize Trumpism. They'd also propose conspiracies such as Biden rigging the election and that he won't leave office when Trump takes over the next election. Eventually, 15 members will leave. They would say the Heritage Foundation no longer supports free trade, they support crony capitalism and protectionism, that they have a weak foreign policy, and that their plans to expand executive power no longer follows the Constitution. You're watching Giraffe Talk!
August Project 2025.
Now we're kind of up to modern times with Project 2025. Let's delve a little bit into it, see what it's really about. Its main plan is to reshape the federal government by consolidating power to the executive branch. The main plan is to completely reshape the federal government by consolidating power to the executive branch to pass policies that favor right-wing ideology. They will replace and vet federal employees for loyalty towards Trump. Now, I received a lot of criticism for being authoritarian, being anti-constitutional, so let's look a little bit into it, see if any of these hold water. One of the mandates for leadership was to take over the FBI, the DOC, the DOJ, the FTC, the DHS, and the DOE. They would reduce environmental regulations, and to get the NHI to pass policies that kind of prioritize conservative beliefs. They would cut Medicaid, Medicare, and reduce taxes on corporations. One of the main goals was to reverse any Biden policy and end DEI and LGBT protections. And instead, the Department of Justice would focus on anyone who's racist towards white people. That was one of the main priorities. They also enacted mass deportation and passed laws based on conservative Christian values, such as banning pornography, banning abortion, and banning contraceptives. And it really focused on a unitary executive theory that the best government works when most of the power is consolidated to one individual. Military also would be used for domestic issues, and we'd get the National Guard to march through cities and fight crime. It'd also aid in deporting immigrants. 4 days into Trump's second term, he adopted 2/3 of these policies. But Trump would deny knowing what the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025 even was. Said he was following Agenda 47. Now I looked into Agenda 47. It's pretty similar to Project 2025. The main difference is they propose building freedom cities with flying cars. So let's look at some of the people who have ties to the Heritage Foundation who worked with Trump. Now Russell Vought was brought on as an advisor, and he would become the director of the OBM and would work with Musk and Doge to fire federal employees and cut government spending. Stephen Miller also had ties to the Heritage Foundation in Project 2025. About 200 of Trump's administration members would become members of the Heritage Foundation. And the Heritage Foundation leader, Kevin Roberts, would state that they were in the process of a second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless as long as the left allows it to. Which basically means, if you fight back, they're going to kill you. They focus on Christian nationalism. So the main philosophy is that it's not liberty to do what you want, but liberty to do what you ought to be doing, which is follow the government. And we say that transgender people, drag queens, and pornography is damaging towards children. And they wanted to dismantle the administrative state, defend the borders, and to destroy cultural Marxism, identity politics, and the entire concept of political correctness. And this is all to save Western culture. So yeah, it's mostly about culture war and traditional values. And they receive criticism. Said it undermines the rule of law, the separation of church and state, the separation of powers, and the entire concept of civil liberties. So I mean, there is no argument if this actually does that. It's pretty cut and dry, straightforward. It just depends on whether or not you think we should do these things. You're watching Giraffe TV. Now let's look in detail at some of these policies that are found in Project 2025. Project 2025 is a huge document. It's kind of hard to comb through everything. That's why I feel like a lot of people didn't really take the time to check it out. So one of the main goals was to give the president complete immunity when committing presidential action. And it's to utilize the Insurrection Act to mobilize the National Guard and send them upon civilians and immigrants and help out with mass deportation. They'd also target protesters. The education system would be reformed. They're no longer helping out poor students. And they're going to focus on anti-woke ideology. They were against the entire concept of student loan forgiveness. They wanted to expand the presidential powers. And they wanted to have federal employees and state employees answer directly to Trump. And federal employees would be replaced with Trump loyalists. And they would have to answer a questionnaire that a lot of people say is kind of like McCarthyism. And yeah, it is. They would cut the VA funding and promote the nuclear family household structure. They push mass surveillance and voter ID laws, trying to gather all the information they can on the American citizens and immigrants. They have the Department of Justice to target political rivals and politicians Trump does not like, and have the courts indict them for their supposed crimes. They would defend CPB, PBS, and the NPR. They would say they're too politically left and that they need to be replaced with religious programming. They would use the Department of Justice to persecute against DEI and start fighting against anti-white racism. They'd also use the Department of Justice to kill pedophiles. They would militarize the police and use the military for Trump's goals, such as mass deportation. And the FBI would directly report to President Trump. They'd adopt strictly anti-communist and anti-socialist policies. And the foreign policies is that we no longer have any alliances. It's all based on transactional relationships. Basically, you give us money or we invade you. You give us money or we kidnap your leader. And we would stop defending NATO countries against Russia. One of the major concepts was more nukes equals more freedom for the American people. And they would accelerate nuclear programs. And they would defund public transportation. If you don't got a car, walk. Another goal is to repeal Roe versus Wade and get rid of things such as the smartphone, menstrual tracker application, contraceptives, abortion, etc. And they would deregulate environmental protections and defund environmental science research programs. This is Giraffe Productions.
The world is a dark and uncertain place.
After going over that, I can honestly say that the policies that were not adopted by the Trump administration were policies they would like to adopt. And yeah, it does seem like Project 2025 may be the blueprint for the Trump administration, which makes sense because the Heritage Foundation has historically had a strong pull on the United States government. Let's say the naysayers are correct, and the Heritage Foundation truly does want to establish a fascist, totalitarian, authoritarian dictatorship. Who's to blame? The people who drink Coors. Not only are you opting to drink a shitty beer, you've also helped establish an authoritarian government. Good job. You could have drank Yingling. You could have drank Blue Moon. You could have drank Modelo or even have a Miller High Life. Hell, you could have even grabbed a bottle of Old English, but instead you got Coors. In conclusion, damn.